Mate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we are reading from Canto 2, Chapter 2, The Lord in the Heart. And we'll start with the last verse number 37. To 37. Pibanti ye bhagavata atmana satam kathamritam shravana puteshu samritam punanti te vishaya vidushitashayam vrajanti tacharana saroruhantikam. Pibanti ye bhagavata atmana satam kathamritam shravana puteshu samritam punanti te vishaya vidushitashayam vrajanti tacharana saroruhantikam. Pibanti ye bhagavata atmana satam kathamritam shravana puteshu samritam punanti te vishaya vidushitashayam vrajanti tacharana saroruhantikam. The no-names translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Pibanti, who drink. Ye, those. Bhagavata, of the personality of Godhead. Atmanaha, of the most dear. Satam, of devotees. Kathamritam, the nectar of the messages. Shravana Puteshu, within the ear holes. Sambritam, fully filled. Punanti, purify. Te, there. Vishaya, material enjoyment. Vidushita ashayam, polluted aim of life. Vrajanti, do go back. Tat, the Lord's. Charana, feet. Saroruhantikam, near the lotus. Translation. Those who drink through oral reception, fully filled with the nectarean message of Lord Krishna, the beloved of the devotees, purify the polluted aim of life, known as material enjoyment, and thus go back to Godhead, to the lotus feet of Him, the personality of Godhead. Would anyone like to read the purport, please?
Hare Krishna, Mataji, I can read.
Yes, please.
Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The sufferings of human society are due to a polluted aim of life, namely, lording it over the material resources. The more human society engages in the exploitation of undeveloped material resources for sense gratification, the more it will be entrapped by the illusory material energy of the Lord, and thus the distress of the world will be intensified instead of diminished. The human necessities of life are fully supplied by the Lord in the shape of food, grains, milk, fruit, wood, stone, sugar, milk, jewels, cotton, salt, water, vegetables, and etc. in sufficient quantity to feed and care for the human race of the world, as well as the living beings on each and every planet within the universe. The supply source is complete, and only a little energy by the human is required to get his necessities into the proper channel. There is no need of machines and tools or huge steel plants for artificially creating comforts of life. Life is never made comfortable by artificial needs, but by plain living and high thinking. The highest perfectional thinking for human society is suggested here by Sukadeva Goswami, namely sufficiently hearing Srīmad Bhagavatam. For men in this age of Kali, when they have lost their perfect vision of life, this Srīmad Bhagavatam is the torchlight by which to see the real path. Srila Jiva Goswami Prabhupada has commented on this Kathamritam mentioned in this verse and has indicated Srimadbhagavatam to be the nectarean message of the personality of Godhead. By sufficient hearing of Srimadbhagavatam, the polluted aim of life, namely loading it to over matter, will subside, and the people in general in all parts of the world will be able to live a peaceful life of knowledge and bliss. For a pure devotee of the Lord, any topics in relation to his name, fame, quality, entourage, etc., are all pleasing. And because such topics have been approved by great devotees like Narada, Hanuman, Nanda Maharaj, and other inhabitants of Vrindavan, certainly such messages are transcendental and pleasing to the heart and soul. And by the constant hearing of the messages of Srimad Bhagavad Gita and later of Srimad Bhagavatam, one is assured herein by Srila Sukadeva Goswami that he will reach to the personality of Godhead and render him transcendental loving service in the spiritual planet of the name Goloka Vrindavan, which resembles a huge lotus flower. Thus, by the process of Bhakti Yoga, directly accepted as suggested in this verse by sufficient hearing of this transcendental message of the Lord, the material contamination is directly eliminated without once attempting to contemplate the impersonal Virat conception of the Lord. And by practicing Bhakti Yoga, if the performer is not purified from the material contamination, he must be pseudo-devotee. For such an impostor, there is no remedy for being freed from material entanglement. Thus, end the Bhakti Vedanta purports of the second canto, second chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Lord in the Heart. Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you.
Om Ajnanaatimirandasya Jnananjana-Shalakaya Chakshur-Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayet Nashtaprayeshu Avadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtaki Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripadamaham Vande Shri Guru Dinataranam Parmananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. So such a beautiful purport by Srila Prabhupada. He has summarized this process of Bhakti Yoga and the benefits of taking up this process. Sukadeva Goswami Prabhupada translates the purport as saying that how by hearing this transcendental literature, one goes back to the spiritual abode. And how do we hear this knowledge? The very first line of this verse is Pibanti ye Bhagavata Atmana Satam. Pibanti, that means we drink. But this drinking is not happening through the mouth. This drinking is happening through our ears, through hearing. That means we completely absorb ourselves in this sublime, profound literature, in hearing this literature. And then it says that then we go back to Godhead. But before that, what happens is by hearing, as this verse says, Vishaya Vidushitam. That means the polluted aim of life is purified. That means by hearing, our aspirations, our contaminated desires, our contaminated aspirations are purified. And once we have purified desires, then that pure love of Krishna can be awakened. In first canto, there's this beautiful verse, Yasya vai shruyamananam Krishne parama purushe bhaktir utpadate pumsam shoka moha bhayapaha. Just by giving oral reception to this Vedic literature, what happens? The feeling for loving devotional service, Prabhupada translates this as feeling for loving devotional service to Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, sprouts. And it extinguishes this shokha, any lamentation, any attachment, any illusion, or any fearless, or any fear that we have. And Prabhupada goes into mentioning that how, life is simple, and just by plain living and high thinking, we can achieve our the desired goal of life. And what does plain living means? Plain living means we are living according to our needs. So whatever is necessary to keep the body and the soul together, that is what required from us. That is what we do. We do the minimum, and that's mentioned in the very first verse of Isha Upanishad. Isha Vasyam Idam Sarvam Yat Kincha Jagatyam Jagat Tena Tvaktena Bunjita Magrida Kashya Svidhanam. That means we are meant to live by the grace of the Lord, according to the quota that He has assigned to us. Whatever comes our way, we accept it. In this particular purport to this particular verse from Isha Upanishad, Prabhupada gives this example, this famous example that we have heard so many times, that how there is this bag of grains lying on the road, and the bird comes, it will take few grains for themselves, and then it will fly away. But when the same human being sees the same bag of grain, what they do is they would just take the whole bag. Why? Because unfortunately the desires of the human being is not satisfied with the basics, and therefore we go on creating more unnecessary things in life, simply to occupy. We see how there are so many products in the market. You just go into any departmental store. There are so many things in the market just to occupy people's attention. And of course, the main reason is to satisfy the greed, to make large amount of money. How in every country there is a patent office, and patent office it's an office where it approves things that can be sold in the market to the common people. So before a product can come on the market, it has to go through that approval process, approval system. Chandramauli Maharaj gives this example of how he was basically sharing the statistics of America, and he was saying that how about every week there are more than 250 new items that come to this patent office to be put on the market, because people are always thinking to create new things and to make more money, and that's how they think that they have made progress. So then he was sharing that how in 1850, when life was very simple, although industrial revolution had begun that time, but it wasn't developed to the point where it has now. So in 1850, the things that were available in the market, 95% of the things were the necessities, like what Prabhupada is mentioning, the necessities like milk, fruit, food grains, wood, stone, sugar, silk, salt, water, vegetables. So 95% of those things were necessities, and only 5% was luxury or items that we don't need. But now the statistics have switched. And he was mentioning that how 95% of the stuff today in the market is something that we can actually do it without. We can live without, and we can still stay healthy. We can still stay wholesome. And now in today's world, only 5% of the things are considered necessity. And this is the progress that human society has made, just to creating more things to distract people. And ultimately what happens is, by this distraction, we are diverted away from our real goal of life, which is self-realization. Prabhupada mentions so many times, he has mentioned his purpose, that plain living and high thinking. But today, because of this distraction, people have stopped living. Even as devotees, how conscious are we? We are always thinking, there are always things to do. There are always so many places to go. There are always so many things that we can purchase. And life has become very, very complex, especially in the big cities where there's so much noise, so much pollution. Same amount of resources are being used by so many people. And Mother Earth is being, it's actually, she's being tormented by this, by this so-called progressive civilization. So thus, this plain living, the simple living or high thinking is just a concept, but actually nobody's moving in that direction. And then Prabhupada, goes on mentioning that how life is simple, So Prabhupada said, chant Hare Krishna and be happy. So simply by chanting, simply by reading Srila Prabhupada books, by reading literature about Krishna, and discussing that with other devotees, and also learning our relationship with Krishna. This very hearing and chanting, or the basis of hearing and chanting is the essence of bhakti. As in third canto, Lord Kapila mentions this to Mother Devahuti. Satam prasangao mama vira samvido bhavanti hrit karna rasayana katha tajoshanat aspapavarga vartmani shraddharatir bhaktiranu pramishyati. So what happens? Satam prasangam mama virya samvido. In the association of devotees, what are we doing? We are discussing the pastimes. We are discussing the activities of Krishna, which is very pleasing. It says, Bhavanti hrit karna rasayana katha. Rasayana means medicine. So this acts as it's very pleasing. It's very satisfying to ear, hrit and heart. Hrit and karna, heart and ear. And what happens? When we are exposed to this knowledge, when we are gradually developing this knowledge, cultivating this knowledge, then we become fixed on this path. And our attraction becomes fixed. And then Lord Kapila Dev says that then real devotion and devotional service begins. So this hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord is the basis. Why? Because it is not on the material platform. They are completely transcendental. That means when we are hearing this transcendental literature, it is full of Krishna's name, form, qualities, pastime, entourage, his abode, his dham, and all these things that are glorified in relationship to Krishna. Then what happens is when we are absorbed in this hearing, when we are absorbed in hearing the transcendental nature of Krishna, or giving at least some quality time in every day in our life, then that's the formula for happiness. We become happy. Prabhupada once was asked, yesterday, I think Bhagavatam Prabhu was also mentioning this, that Prabhupada was asked, what is the goal of life? And Prabhupada said, the goal of life is to enjoy. But because we don't know how to enjoy, that's why Krishna consciousness movement is there to teach us. Because by nature, the soul is anandamayo-bhyasa. Anandamayo-bhyasa means we are always seeking pleasure. And we are born to experience that pleasure, but in a way that we don't experience disappointment. Because the nature with what happens when we experience happiness through the material nature or through material sense gratification. Keshav Maharaj gives that 4 things happens when we are trying to experience happiness through material nature. One is we don't get it. First, we might not get it. Second, we may get it, but it's not good enough. Third, we get it, but it fails. You know how any product that we get from Kmart or something, it may last for a few years, or sometimes it may last for a day. Like that. So 4 things happen. One is we get it. Second, we get it, but it's not good enough. Third, we get it, but it fails. And fourth, we get it, and it's good. It lasts as well. But it comes with a side B. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, yehi samsparsha jab hoga, dukkha yoni ye evata. That means in the womb of the happiness lies dukkha, lies distress. So basically, Prabhupada is saying that we have to, this Krishna consciousness movement is restricting us from that sense enjoyment, which leads to disappointment. Prabhupada wants us to enjoy life in a way that is eternal, in a way that it doesn't stop, in a way that it doesn't give disappointment. And because, why I mentioned this is, as I think Bhagavad Ashra Prabhu was also mentioning, that everyone is trying to become happy. Everyone, there are so many self-help books, there are so many videos, how to become successful, how to become happy. But simply, by here Prabhupada says that simply by sufficiently hearing Srīmad Bhagavatam, that's the highest perfectional thinking. That's the goal of life. Because this love of Krishna is already there in us. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhu Kabunai Shravanadi Suddha Chitta Karaya Uday. That means this love of Krishna is eternally established in our heart, in all the living entities. It's not something that I have to get from an external source. No, it is already established in our heart. But just by Shravanadi, that means just by hearing and chanting this transcendental literature, topics about Krishna, our heart is purified, and then that love awakens. Therefore, becoming happy in this world it's so easy. Prabhupada is mentioning in this Bhagavad, this verse talks about the essence of bhakti, hearing and chanting. And Prabhupada further states in the Prabhupada that for men in this age of Kali who have lost the perfect vision of life, this Śrīmad Bhagavatam is a torchlight by which to see the real path. By which to receive the real path. That means, in first canto of Śrīmad Bhagavatam, when Vyasadeva is despondent, he's not feeling content. He has written so many scriptures, but his heart is not feeling that joy, that bliss. And then Narad Muni instructed Vyasadeva to, because you have not written enough about Krishna, because you have not glorified Krishna enough, that's why you are sad. And then Narad Muni gives this case study. He gives his own personal example. As it is said that a good preacher is a preacher who gives case study of his own example. And Narad Muni is the best teacher. The kind of people that he has given Krishna consciousness to it's such a variety. From little children like Prahlad Maharaj, Dhruva Maharaj, uncivilized people like Mrigari, sophisticated kings like Chitraketu Maharaj, Prachina Bhari, or intellectual like Vyasadeva. He's the best teacher. So then in this particular example, when Vyasadeva is sad, and Narad Muni comes and he explains that how he gives this case study that because he heard Krishna-kathā, because he heard Krishna's pastime from saintly people. And because he heard that again and again, and because they were bona fide teachers, therefore, and that's the reason why he's where he is, why he's blissful, he's feeling that bliss in bhakti. Therefore, this practice, this culture of hearing, this culture of hearing as a sadhana, as a practice, is so important. Because when we are hearing every day, when we are doing some quality reading, when we are doing some quality hearing every day, it comes with absorption. Next step, as Radhanath Maharaj says, that what is Krishna consciousness? In one word, he says absorption, simply absorption. And then this verse translates that by hearing, as I mentioned before, our material aims are purified, and thus we go back to Godhead. But the qualification to go back to Godhead is love for Krishna. Prema pumartho mahan. And how do we get this love? By constantly hearing about Krishna. We get attracted to Krishna, and that's how this love develops. When Mother Rukmini wrote this love letter to Krishna, so in those days, writing love letters, girls were not writing love letters. So Mother Rukmini was feeling very shy. She was thinking, oh, I have written this love letter to Krishna. And then she writes, but what to do, Krishna? I have never seen you. I have never met you. All I have done is I have heard about you, and I have fallen in love with you because I've been hearing about you. The verse goes like this, as the Brahmana reads, says, Shrutva gunan bhuvana sundara Śrīmad te nirvishya karna vivare harato angatapam rupam drisham drishimatam akhilarthalabham tvai achyuta vishati chittam apatram apatrapam. It means that, so she's saying to Krishna, O beauty of the worlds, having heard of your qualities, which enter the ear of those who hear and remove their bodily distress, and having also heard of your beauty, which fulfills all the visual desires of those who see, I have fixed my shameless mind upon you, O Krishna. So apatrapame means shameless. She's saying, Krishna, I have become shameless. But what to do? Shruta ganan, that means because I have heard about you, I'm hearing about you, I'm hearing about your beautiful qualities, your beautiful form. Śrīmad nirvishya karna vivare harato angatapam. So, how she's saying that how this Krishna-kathā enters my ear holes, it enters my heart, and all the hankerings, all the pain, all the turbulations of the heart, they are all mitigated. She says, and then in the third line of this verse, it says, if someone can meditate about your beautiful form, that is akhilartha labham. That is the highest form of achievement. Tvai achyuta vishati chitam apatrapatam. That means she's admitting my mind is shamelessly attracted to you. So in one sense, she's saying that Krishna, you are responsible for this because you are so attracted that my mind is actually struck upon you. And she's then, our Acharya has described that how then she goes into a conversation with herself. She's thinking, oh, I have written this letter to Krishna, and Krishna may think, oh, such a shameless girl she is. Look at her audacity. She's writing to me, and then she's telling me that I'm responsible. So then in the next verse she says, but what to do, Krishna? There is nobody like you. Because I have heard so much about you that in all the different qualities, in all the categories of the qualities that they are there in this world, there is actually no one like you. No one can match you. And the next verse she says, Kvatva mukunda mahati kulashila rupa vidya vayodra vinadar dama biratma tulyam dhira patim kulavati navrinita kanya kale narasimha naraloka mano abhiramam. And she's saying, there is nobody like you because you can give Kvatva mukunda, because you can give liberation. And who can compare with you in your kula, in your lineage, in your shila, in your character? You are spotless. In your rupa, you are the best in beauty. And all these qualities about Krishna, she's saying that I have learned through hearing. Then she continues, Vidya. That means you are the most educated. Vayu, you are ever eternal youthful. Dravina, money, wealth. So she's saying that, Krishna, you are the best marriage alliance I can get because you are best in all categories. And there is only one person that can be compared with you. Who is that person? You yourself, Atma Tulyam. And then she continues saying, Dhira Patim Kulavati na Vrinita Kanya. That means which sober person, which sober woman would not be attracted, would not be disturbed after hearing this about you. And then she goes on to a conversation with herself, as our Acharya has described. She's thinking, oh, Krishna may think that because I have written all these glories about Krishna, she wants me to get married to her. But then after marriage, she will control me like any other wife would control her husband. So then Mother Rukmini is thinking like this, that Krishna may think like this. So then she says, no, Krishna, don't think like this, because you are Kala Narasimha, Naraloka. I mean, I can't control you because you are Narasimha. Who can control you? You are time personified. So, she has written such a beautiful letter. And when she sends this through Brahmana, when Krishna hears this, Krishna also gets, Krishna understands that, she's in love with me. So, for the past 20-25 minutes, what we have done is we have heard about Krishna's glories. Mother Rukmini also heard about Krishna's glories, and we are hearing Krishna's glories through Mother Rukmini's letter. So we have taken part in this hearing. In the letter, she says, in the very first verse, she says, Harato Angatapam. That means, I feel relieved after hearing about you, Krishna. And in material sense, or in mundane world, we can also argue that, well, I also feel the same relief when I watch some mundane videos, or when I watch a mundane web series on Netflix. It has the same effect. But actually, no. These, sometimes doctors recommend painkillers along with the medicine. But we cannot rely completely on the painkillers. We may watch some mundane movie, but it will only stimulate the senses a little bit. But for something to have deeper impact on the heart, we need to study, we need to hear about Krishna, we need to read about Krishna. Prabhupada mentions in one of the purports that anything that is not related to Krishna simply agitates our mind. I was thinking, that how this statement comes into, how can I verify the statement? And if you actually see that anything that you hear, any mundane thing that you hear, it simply agitates our mind in terms that if we switch on the news, what does it say? Some robbery, or the market the share market has gone down, or something happened, or there was a tragedy there. So things like this, it simply agitates our mind, and it does. Therefore, the significance of hearing about Krishna is so important. And when continuing on this example of watching a mundane movie, because what happens when we watch a mundane movie is that someone else is a director, right? Someone else is a cinematographer. But when we are hearing about Krishna, when we are reading about Krishna, we are actually decorating Krishna. Our mind can visualize unlimited possibilities of Krishna's beauty. Then it becomes a personal offering. So there's nothing like, watching Krishna through the pages of Srīmad Bhāgavatam than watching some mundane movie that just stimulates the senses. There's a beautiful verse that describes Krishna's beauty in 8th Canto, I think. Prasadabhi mukham sashvat prasannavadana ikshanam prasadabhimu, sorry, wrong meter. Prasadabhimukham shashvat prasannavadanikshanam shunasham subhravam charu kapolam surasundaram. It means, so that this whole verse is describing Krishna's beauty, that how Lord's face is beautiful, it's pleasing, and to the devotees who see him, he appears never to be displeased. He's always prepared to give benedictions to the devotees. His eyes, his eyebrows, his raised nose, his broad forehead, They are all very beautiful, and he is more beautiful than any other demigod. So this verse is describing Krishna's beauty. And when we connect this sound vibration, which is non-different from Krishna, then we start to appreciate Krishna's beauty. We start to understand Krishna's beauty. And that's the significance of hearing versus watching a mundane video. So there's, for children also, there's this concept of bedtime story. There's no such thing as bedtime video. Why? Because it actually, when we are reading a story to children, then it actually it develops their imaginative skills. So in the last line of the verse, it says that by practicing bhakti yoga, if the performer is not purified from the material contamination, he must be a pseudo-devotee. For such an impostor, there is no remedy for being freed from material entanglement. So what does this mean? That means we have to constantly introspect. When we are in this path of bhakti, it's not that we can go on autopilot and just do our rounds mechanically, do any service mechanically. No, we have to put our heart into it. We have to introspect. We can only await Krishna's mercy provided we are making efforts towards that, the goal of our life. There's this verse in 11th Canto, chapter 2, verse number 42. Bhakti paresha anubhavo viraktir anyatra chesa trika eka kalaha prapadya manasya yatasnatas yuvas tushti pushti kshud apayo bhagavam apayo anughasham. Tushti pushti shud apayo. It's a beautiful verse. It says 3 things happen simultaneously when we take shelter of Krishna. 3 things happen when we are fixed in the process of bhakti. And what are those 3 things? Devotion, direct experience of the Supreme Lord, and detachment from other things. These three things occur simultaneously for one who has taken shelter of Krishna. And then Swami gives this example of, he compares this bhakti process with a person who is hungry. So when a person who is hungry, as he's eating with each bite, what happens is pleasure, nourishment, and relief from hunger is happening simultaneously. So for a person who is hungry, when he's engaged in eating, pleasure, nourishment, and relief from hunger comes. Prabhupada beautiful writes in this, in the purport of this verse, he says that how, when there is a sumptuous plate of prasadam, and a hungry man is busy consuming that plate of food, he's not interested in anything else, anything that's happening around him, he's not interested in that. In fact, he considers that any other topic or any activity is just a disturbance to his concentration of, because he's savoring this meal. Similarly, as one advances in Krishna consciousness, one considers anything that's not related to Krishna, that's not related to the devotional service of Krishna as a disturbance, as an obnoxious disturbance. That's what Prabhupada writes, obnoxious disturbance. It means as we advance, we can gauge our progress through this measure. Has my attachment to mundane things reduced? Has my absorption increased? Am I finding ways to hear? Am I finding ways during the day? Am I finding ways to hear about Krishna? Am I finding ways to read about Krishna? And this is the measure that we can measure ourselves. We can gauge ourselves. As Bhagavatam Prabhu mentioned in his class last Sunday, that we have to become childlike. We don't have to give up this sense of amazement towards this transcendental knowledge. How Prabhupada, he's the author of all these books, right? But every time, if we read his pastimes, he would ask the disciples to get Krishna book, and he would hear like he's hearing it for the first time. Why? Because he has that childlike enthusiasm. These books are written by him, but he's saying that Krishna is dictating him, and he was simply writing. So we have to have this childlike enthusiasm. And gradually, when we hear with this focus, when we hear with this absorption, then with care and attention, then eventually one day, Krishna willing, we will also be able to write a heartfelt offering to Krishna. As Bhagavatam Prabhu mentioned in his class last Sunday, that substance of our existence is to be lovers of Krishna. So may our mind be always fixed in this goal that that substance of our life is to become lovers of Krishna. So I'll stop here and see if anyone has any questions, any comments, any realizations.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for a beautiful class. Just a question. I think when you were referring to a verse from 11th Canto, I think in the prophet you mentioned that as one advances in devotional service, the person sees everything as a distraction or something along those lines. And then I don't remember the reference, but then we also hear that as one advances in devotional service, he sees everything in relation to Krishna. So how do we reconcile these two understanding?
Yes, thank you so much for this question. So when I was mentioning this purport of Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada is saying that anything that's not related to devotional service of Krishna as an obnoxious disturbance, when that is not something that's not related to Krishna. And of course, we see as we progress, we also see that how pure devotees see they actually relate everything to Krishna, right? But that stage, to come to that stage, we have to we have to go through this stage as well. When we consider that's something that's not related to devotional service of Krishna as an obnoxious disturbance. Like for example, if some, if like the example that I gave, for example, we are watching a mundane movie. We may say, or we may argue as that, I can see trees in this movie, so that means it's related to Krishna. That's not true. We are not watching for. We can watch trees and go out in the park also, right? We can watch live trees, but that's not the point. The point is that we are absorbed. We are how the progress is measured that how we are constantly like how one time Radhanath Maharaj was asked that how can I what is the measure that one can one can see that how one can be how one is progressing. What is the measure to see progress in one's life? And then Maharaj said that one's attraction towards hearing is the measure, is simply the measure to to gauge our progress in life in bhakti. So I'm not sure if I've answered your question, but this stage of looking or seeing everything as related to Krishna is for this is from my understanding, is for pure devotees, like how they can see everything related to Krishna. But when, for example, in the example of watching mundane movies or mundane videos, the example is that when Krishna is available to us through Bhagavatam, why would we want to watch? Why would I want to relate Netflix through Krishna? Does that answer your question?
Yes, Mataji. What I understood is that both are correct. One, what you referred is an earlier stage, and in relation to everything Krishna comes later on. Once we go through the phase of, I think it's our avyartha kalatvam, probably a little bit.
Yes, not
that's
based
how I
on.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mataji.
Anyone else would like to say something about this? Add something? Thanks for joining, everyone. May we all have a blissful Krishna conscious day. Granthra Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai, Jagat Guru Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for the wonderful class, Mataji. Hare Krishna.